Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's August 29th, 2018, and I thought I'd do another episode of Ask Me Anything. It's been a little while since I did my last one. The first comment and question that I got was from Kate Cortez. She's located in Central Florida, and I'll try to read through her comment and question. Kevin, thanks for taking the time to read and get to our questions. I really appreciate it. I have an area in my backyard that is sloped. I don't know the degree that it's sloped. It's a relatively small area, about 8 by 10. I'm assuming it's 8 by 10 foot area that she's concerned about. If I had to guess, when we get heavy rains, as we do all summer long in Central Florida, that area floods and the water sits there about 4 to 5 inches deep. I'm assuming that the builder of the home in this development did that on purpose, sloped it away from the house, away from the foundation. My question to you is, I've got cardboard laid in the area and just have it held down with bricks at the moment, waiting for my wood chips to get delivered. My thought was that I would add the wood chips to it, raise it up a few inches so there wasn't so much water sitting there. But as I'm thinking that through, I don't know if I should add gravel first and then cardboard and then the wood chips on top of that to help with the drainage in that area moving forward. What are your thoughts? Thanks, Kate. First, I apologize for it being probably over a week since responding to this question. Well, the answer really depends on a couple of variables. One, you're in a development, so I don't know what's this area that you're talking about. I'm assuming it's 8 foot by 10 foot where the water pools in your backyard, and it slopes down away from your house. How much further do you go to another low point on your property or to a neighbor's property? If you were to excavate or dig a trench or put in a drainage tile going from the area that where the water pools, the indentation in the on your property, to an area on your property that's lower than this point, than the point at the base, then I would do that if at all possible. I'll be making videos in the future about, and of course our property is much larger than that, and our gardens are. But I'll be putting, I'm currently I'm flattening out areas on our property. Having property with a slope to your property, meaning that, let's say, a slope away from your house, that your house is the highest point on your property, and you have a way of directing that water away from the garden area, which happens to be an indentation in your backyard, to another location on your own property, that would be ideal. Otherwise, I think that, yes, putting in some porous material, what I'm thinking are either very, very fine screened gravel or sand. And because when I think of gravel around here, we have really bony material, and the roots, and as the time progresses, as you're building soil on that site, even if you're not bringing in compost and all, just by doing cover crops and all, you're going to build soil in that area. It's going to gradually increase and increase. It's really important not to, especially in a really rainy zone like you're in, to allow the roots of your plants to be able to get adequate oxygenation, or adequate, not allow the feet of the plants to get too wet. So you have to think about, geez, if I'm growing carrots or whatever the plant is, how deep those roots are actually going. Yes, you want the soil to be moist, but you want it to be drained as well. If you were to bring in a type of soil, if there's a place where that has a loamy, where you have a combination of sand, silt, and clay mixed together, that would be much more ideal. However, you wanted to get it above that area. So if the marginal zones around the outside are the areas that tend to dry out after these heavy rains, that's the very base level, so that 4 to 5 inches is going to be a wet zone. So you want to bring the ground level up to that 4 to 5 inches, or drain that area by putting in a mini drain swale or a drainage tile, something of that nature, so that the plant's feet aren't wet all the time. I hope this makes sense. I put him on. I decided to create an Evernote list that's going to be ideas that I have for future videos. And after reading your comments and questions about what I'm going to call is the site selection for gardening or for a small scale farm, I think what I'm going to do is this winter, when things slow down for me, is create a video, probably a video series going over, it may be, this may be something that some people are thinking about. Geez, I'm thinking about purchasing a property. What are the elements that I need to be thinking about when I purchase a property? Because I want to grow my own organic food. I want to be more sustainable. I want to have food sovereignty, and I want to have water sovereignty. So I think I'll make a video series addressing, the property location using the keyline scale of permanence, as well as using information that I gleaned from Jean-Martin Fortier's The Market Gardener, that book. There's really good information about the slope of the property, filling in or putting in drainage tiles in areas that are wet, trying to decide, geez, are you in a cold temperate climate, or are you in a high desert environment? So what type of beds are best, what orientation should the beds be in, those sorts of things. And dealing with clay soil versus being in a sandy loamy soil, and so on and so forth. So those are all things that I think are really potentially beneficial for people in the future. If anyone else has ideas about those sorts of videos that are within my realm of knowledge, I'd be happy to cover, because those are things that I'm always thinking about. We just happen to be in an area that is really bony, rocky ground, and it's a hassle. But I think some of the information we glean from our experiences here really have made a big difference. And slope is something that's not to be shied away from, but having flat land as opposed to level land. So level land, I'm thinking about, geez, you put a level out there, it's completely flat, and that's not the ideal site for a garden. You really want a nice gentle slope, but you want to have it flat so that you don't have these pools of water sitting there, or you don't have a crown where the water runs off of, especially if you're in an arid place as well. So thanks so much, Kate. Hit me up again if there's more details, more information. I apologize for taking me a week to get back to you on this. Thank you. Let me see what else I've got here for. Oh, JB from Oz. He's also dealing with a leaky dam and all. So I'm going to be posting more videos about how I'm using plant material to help seal the ponds, paper products, cardboard and all. Those I've done in the past, but all the materials that I can think of, organic materials trying to seal this pond up. Church of Cryptos wrote, where can you buy plants? Information on plant seems limited, and that's in reference to seabuckthorn or seaberry plants that I posted a while back, and I'll put a link up in the upper right hand corner to that video. The place that most of the seabuckthorn or seaberry plants that you see on our site, they predominantly came from Fox Green Farms, and I'll put a link in the description below to their website or Facebook page and all. I bought those as bare root plants that were probably 2 years old. They're probably 18 to 24 inches tall, including the roots when I got them. and I bought several different plants from Fox Green Farms, and they're very good. The plants were in good shape. They had good root structure when they arrived. Everything about them seemed very, very good. I planted the plants. We've had really good success with the majority of the plants that we got from Fox Green Farms. As I mentioned in that video, I'm not a big fan of this particular cultivar. It's too thorny and too small of berries. And these aren't sexed when you buy them from Fox Green Farms, or at least the plants that I bought for them weren't sexed. So we had you take your chances whether they're going to be males and females and all. So we have a really low number of females, and that may be just the way that things work out when you're propagating and when you're growing them from seed, and I imagine that that's how they did it. I don't recall specifically how they propagated the seabuckthorn or the seaberry plants. The other place that I've purchased seaberry plants from is Stark Bros, where I've purchased many different cultivars of apples, peaches, nectarines, plums, many different plants from Stark Bros. They really, I do recommend them as a company. Their pricing is reasonable. Their shipping is good. Their guarantees are good. Some of the plants that didn't make it, I've called them up, and they, if they've got them, they'll ship them out at the appropriate time of year as well. So I really am a big fan of Stark Bros. The seaberries that I got from Stark Bros weren't bare root. Now I believe that they do sell bare roots at this time, but they didn't at that time. I think they sold them in 4-inch pots. And I would say that they weren't as hardy as the bare root plants that I got from Fox Green Farms, and or I didn't take adequate care of them. And I've had really good success with so many of their plants, but the seabuckthorns or seaberry plants didn't really. They took off and started doing well, but some of them had a hard time surviving our winters here. They weren't as hardy, they didn't have as much growth rate as the ones from Fox Green Farms, and therefore with our heavy snow loads they would get crushed or snapped under the snow. And at that time I wasn't using the tree guards that you see me using all the time on the property at this point. So I think that they're a good company to go to. I don't know how thorny those plants are or the size of the seaberry plants or seaberries themselves. I know that there are other sources out there. I can't recall who they are that have either thornless seaberries or they have larger, more plump seaberries on the plants as well. And hopefully at some point in time in the future I'll find someone who has some that has less thorny seaberry plants and more robust berries as well. I'm always looking at the time that it takes us to harvest and process whatever the fruits or vegetables that we're growing on site, and the time and energy put into that harvesting process. Growing the plants and getting them to a productive stage it hasn't been a tremendous challenge for us by and large for most of the plants. We're very good at being very productive with the production of the berries or the fruits or the vegetables, whatever it may be. It's always looking at how much time it takes to harvest and process those berries. And I know I've had comments in the past about the seaberries really exclaiming the virtues of the very high vitamin C levels, and we're whole food plant based here, so we get way more vitamin C in our systems, and it's a water based nutrient, so you can't overdose on it. It's going to be eliminated in your urine. And because we're whole food plant based, we're getting a plethora of vitamin C all the time. It's not something that we need to be concerned about. I know some people on the standard American diet, yes, I think that having a real high source of vitamin C may potentially, depending on what your main diet is, maybe a good reason to actually propagate that plant as well. Let's see, I know I've got a couple more comments here. We're supposed to get some thunderstorms here shortly, so I'm super excited. So I'm going to try and do one more. So 1994, Abby Girl wrote, I am plagued with bindweed and have been told I will never get rid of it. I pretty much have given up gardening. Not only is it in my garden, but it is in my lawn. The tools can go down, the roots can go down 30 feet or more. Break it, it shoots off in multiple times. The seed can stay in the ground for 50 years and then decide to sprout. The only way to get rid of it is to move. Boy, I share your frustration and and feeling hopeless with this weed. We have several weeds that we deal with here on site. And I'll put a link in the upper right hand corner to the video that I talked about me using Bumblebee, my mini excavator, to dig out some of the bindweed in one of our garden beds. And so far it's been great. But I have bindweed all over the property. We also have pokeweed. I'll have to do a video. I just pulled out a couple of plants of pokeweed just a couple of days ago, which really have a tremendous root system as well. And the quackgrass is something else. So here's what I know about bindweed. I think it can go to a depth of about 10 feet, and it can go out laterally, 30 feet. And I've talked before how it's gone under concrete slabs that I put in and come up and popped up on the other side of it. It can run the cracks in your concrete as well. It can work its way into the wall if you got a retaining wall, whether it's a brick wall, as long as there's no mortar there. It can get in there. It's tenacious. Those roots store all of their nutrients in the roots. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and record some video. Record some video of how I'm going to try and wipe out the bindweed that's in my Hugelkultur Back to Eden site up that I've been working on up front. I actually took some bindweed and didn't realize it, or thought I wouldn't have to worry about it, but it ended up next to the fence, and that bindweed has taken right off. It probably was only a couple little pencil diameter thick, short length pieces of bindweed, and I just let it go. And this season, boy, has that stuff really expanded. And I think I put it in there the season before last, so the root zone has really been expanding tremendously. So what are the ways that I'm going to address it? I'm going to be using a combination of solarization and occulation. And I made some videos about this in the past, but I really should do, if I go to tackle this, is really do a thorough video showing how I'm going to use solarization. So solarization is when we take like a clear plastic material, such as that's found in hoop houses or greenhouses, that clear plastic film that goes over the greenhouse, which allows the sun to come through it. I used solarization during last fall to kill off weeds in the central garden bed and quackgrass, and it killed it off. Now I left it there all winter underneath a tarp. And the tarp I used was from Harbor Freight, and they're not the tarps that I would recommend. Tarps for occulation, we're starting to get some thunder and I see some dark clouds coming. Tarps for occulation really should be UV treated black silage tarps, at least black on one side. So with solarization is using clear plastic material laid over the surface of the bed, the lawn, wherever it is that you want to rid yourself of all the plant life that's there. What happens is the temperature just gets very hot. It's like a solar oven in a sense. and it's going to kill even some of the microbes in the surface of the soil. Some people will use it to get rid of the nematodes that are undesirable, parasitic nematodes. It will kill the different grasses and weeds. Now, it'll probably adequately kill the bindweed initially, but it'll only kill the vegetative growth. Then what will happen is the nutrients and the storage materials within the root components will send up new shoots, and that needs to be dealt with as well. So potentially using clear plastic for a prolonged period of time, or using clear plastic and the UV treated tarp for occulation, which is a separate process. Those in combination can rid yourself of some of these really tenacious, nasty plants. And by nasty plants, I'm saying, oh, they've evolved with a very beneficial aspect. They store so much reserves in the roots that they can keep coming back even if their plant on the surface of the ground dies off. So when the bindweed or quackgrass or comfrey or horseradish, any of these tuberous plants that store all the nutrients down in the root zone, when there is an event that wipes out the surface, they come right back because they're so hardy. They've stored all the nutrients below the surface of the ground. So when systems become good again, in other words, you remove the surface of the clear plastic from the surface of the ground, and those plants start to come up, let them get to the point where there's several leaves on it, then reapply that clear plastic to solarize it and kill it off. And I realize that you've got these margins around the garden bed area where it is too, because these plants have gone to seed in the past. They've dropped their seed, and as you said, they can be able to germinate 50 years later. That, you know, when I move the soil on the property here, I know that every time that I scrape the surface, even though, geez, I removed those weed seeds that blew in, well, there's weed seeds that were there as the soil built up over time. Even inside of a greenhouse that isn't screened, and that wind will blow in when the sides are opened up or the doors are left open, and blow in weed seeds, and they'll contaminate the soil and eventually start to germinate if they're successful. So those are things that we've got to deal with. We need to be thinking about what's going to happen over time. And so the three mechanisms I'll be using are: one, solarization; two, occulation, and occulation is using the UV treated black tarp, and that's going to deprive the sun exposure, eliminating photosynthesis, and the surface plant life is going to die off as well. So these things can be done over and over again, or done interchangeably. If you really have good soil microbial community and you don't want to hurt that, solarization may not be the way to go, because you'll destroy some of those microorganisms in that soil. So those are the two main means that I would use. The other means that I'm going to be trying soon is a combination of using the most chemical warfare that I would use, and that's using vinegar, which is acetic acid, and the vinegar that I'll be using is probably the stuff that you'd get in the household, which is less than 5% acetic acid, where you can get horticultural grade vinegar, which I think is 15%, and that's going to really do a big kill rate. Mixed with some detergent to give it some lasting time on the plant as well. And I'm thinking about using lemon juice as well, which is citric acid. And I don't know how this is going to work yet, or if it will work. But that's what I've been thinking about using. Something that isn't going to have a detrimental effect on the soil microorganism for very long, if it does, but may help me to knock back some of the weed areas. I haven't gotten to the new herb garden up front yet, and I have some concrete to pour in order to make the walkways around there. And so I had this all cleared and set for pouring last fall, or before the snow came, and unfortunately the weather turned too quickly. Now I'm so busy with the rest of the projects that I haven't gotten to that point yet. So all the weeds have come up and all. So I've got to deal with that, and either doing solarization, oculation, or using these other means. But I will try to record, create a video demonstrating, I'm sorry, the winds are kicking up here, demonstrating the solarization process and oculation processes that I use to try and eliminate the bindweed up front. It looks like the storm is headed this way. I hope we get a whole bunch of water. We really could use some rain. I thank you so much. You're a wonderful community. I really appreciate your comments and questions. It really helps me to grow as a gardener, and you know, they really stimulate some really good thought processes. So thanks so much for your comments and questions. I appreciate it. I hope you folks have a wonderful day. I'm going to go see what's happening out here now. Take care. Bye-bye now.